understand that the body is just the expression of the living intelligence. And I'm aware that this physical body, I'm into the physicality of the body. I like the physical body. And I know that the physical body never makes a mistake. So then people talk to me, and then I start telling them about the way they've been designed. Every species has been designed in a certain way. Our anatomy, our physiology has been designed so that we eat food that suits this design. We are not what we eat, we are what we digest. And we don't digest food well because we're mixing everything together and we're eating food that doesn't suit our species.
I'm a primary care physician, but the truth is I spend most of my days in my office talking to people about what they're eating. I've become a dietary counselor, which is a noble profession, and because that is, as Hippocrates said, let food be your medicine, and he was absolutely right.
I grew up in an age where people didn't think at all about food as part of medicine, but we have discovered that it is phenomenally important.
My illness was very painful, extremely painful. My illness was my body's immune system getting confused as to what was attacking my body. And physical touch was interpreted as a breach of the skin and the dermis. So any physical pressure, my arm would swell up and have a huge rash below the dermis or below the skin. So the histamine would then release itself into the joints, so I couldn't move my elbow, it'd be I looked like Elephant Man most mornings when I woke up because of how I was sleeping. So, my life was pretty miserable, where everything was restricted.
We have been designed, first of all, this is our digestive system. So this is the main channel of elimination. So the digestive system of a human being is 12 times the length of its spine. And what makes a difference in between animals living in the wild is always the length of their bowel compared to the length of their spine. So for example, if you look at animals living only, eating only meat, they have a very short bowel. They have about 7 feet of bowel, because the intelligence knew that meat rots extremely fast when the body is hot and humid. So we are mammals, we have a hot and humid body. So they have a very short bowel so that they can eat, digest, and eliminate well, very fast. So they have about 7 feet, we have 32 feet.
The body has an amazing ability to heal. If you break a bone and you put a cast on that limb, the cast doesn't heal you. The bone has the innate ability to reconnect. The cast just holds it still. If you cut your hand, a Band-Aid doesn't heal you. It just protects it while the skin closes up on its own. And the body has the ability to heal from inflammation and pain, but it will never do it if we keep the insult happening. If I wiggle that bone around, it'll never heal. If I keep picking at that cut, it will never heal. And if I'm putting the foods into my body that cause the inflammation to happen, you can never heal.
One of the main driving forces for inflammatory reactions is the state of the chemicals in the tissues that are summoned up by the inflammatory reaction, and those chemicals, those molecules are in the tissues largely from what the person is eating. And if the person is eating a diet high, say, in animal products, meats and dairy products, these substances have a particular type of fat called arachidonic acid. And arachidonic acid turns into a very powerful pro-inflammatory molecule, prostaglandin 2, that really drives inflammatory reactions. So if a person has been eating a meat and dairy-based diet and their tissues are full of arachidonic acid, when the stimulus comes to set off inflammation, they get a huge inflammatory reaction, and the pain component of that can often be devastating, be crippling.
The reason why people go into like chronic pain is because the way they eat way too much meat, way too much animal protein, which is extremely like acidic. So when you look at all the wildlife, when you look at all the animals like living in the wild, and you're looking at their inside to see which one have been designed like a bit like human beings, and there is one that have been designed identical to human beings, and it's all the primates. So the small monkeys, the big gorillas, when you look at their inside, it's always 12 times the length of their bowel compares to the length of their spine. So we've been designed to eat like primates. And primates are eating 50% fruits. So fruits are very alkalizing, and fruits have a lot of astringent. Astringent is cleaning the lymphatic system. Then they eat 46% vegetables, which is building the blood and making the body alkaline. So 96% of their diet is alkaline forming, and then they eat 4% protein. We eat 42% protein.
I had this vision of going 2 years of eating just fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, and seeds and whole grains, and just see if I could get off my medication, just see if that would help me. So I had this idea that if I was going to do 2 years of this plant eating, maybe I should do the first 2 months, just a random number, like 60 days, where I would just drink the juice.
Eating a plant-based diet, AKA the anti-inflammatory diet, AKA the alkalizing diet, these are plant materials that are full of the bioavailable minerals, especially the potassium, the calcium, magnesium, that are found in large amounts in your organic foods. That's going to help to alkalize the body. There's a lot of alkalizing products out there, but to me, the most consistent results have been seen when my patients follow the plant-based diets.
On the 60 days, I lost about 82 pounds. I then switched to eating the fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, and seeds. I was going to do another, 22 months, but 3 months later, I was 100 pounds down now. I'd lost another 18, and I was off all medication. So I waited 1 week with no meds, because I've been on meds for 8 long years. And I just waited 1 week. I didn't want to get too excited because, maybe. And after 1 week of this, no medication, I was fine. So I went down to Bondi Beach. That was 10 days or 7 or 8 days of not having any pills. And that'll be 10 years since I have been completely medication free.
My journey started about 22 years ago when a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, her dad, who always was over at our place, and every time he was traveling through, he was diagnosed with cancer at 72 years old, so stage 4 metastasized, and he switched to this plant-based whole foods diet called the Gerson therapy. There was no salt, no sodium, high potassium, no refined products or anything like that. It had a liver detox component, it had a restore organs component, it had a juicing component, but diet, like the food, was a very much an important part of that. So he did this therapy and he was cancer-free within a few months.
In the early 1900s, it was understandable that people might neglect food a little bit because we were preoccupied with infections. So if a person has pneumonia or some other kind of infection, the answer is an antibiotic. But modern medicine has carried that kind of thinking to modern conditions which aren't caused by bacteria or viruses. They're caused, for the most part, by unhealthy diet choices that throw our bodies into poor balance.
What's interesting is that after a month of meat abstinence, most patients will come back and say that they're 40%, 60%, even upwards of 80% better just by being on a pure vegan, organic, plant-based diet. So that really speaks to how quickly the body responds when you start to move your pH from acid to a more alkaline base.
I've had eczema for 30 plus years. I've gone every city I've ever lived in. I've gone to see doctors, done allergy tests, and nothing ever was conclusive. But I just kept dealing with eczema.
Surprisingly, I think perhaps the worst foods are in the category of dairy products, which I say surprisingly because we all grew up with them and the idea was you need milk for strong bones and so forth. But the protein that predominates in dairy products tends to trigger inflammation for many people. And I don't ask people to take it on faith, but when they get the milk and the cheese out of their lives, for many people, their joints feel better. The inflammation caused by the dairy is gone. But the other part of this is that dairy products are high in what we call bad fat, saturated fat, that narrows the arteries. So when we have narrowed arteries, our bodies can't heal. And we found that lower back pain is often caused by a lack of blood flow to the arteries of the lumbar spine, and that causes the discs that are between the vertebrae to start to degenerate. So my point is that dairy products have all the things that contribute to pain.
I found out I had large variations in lactose, and so I decided to try a lactose-free diet, and within 10 days, my eczema, my lifelong eczema, went away, just gone. So in 10 days, it's completely changed 30 years of my life.
After about 5 years of teaching hundreds of clients and showing them how to reverse their diseases, and many of them had, end-stage diseases, many of them also had been scheduled to have organs removed, so surgeries. So I decided to start the Green Mustache, and that's our cafe. It's all 100% organic all the time. That's a critical part of the therapy. With the Green Mustache, what was fantastic is that right away, we started getting people who, had all of these chronic diseases coming in, and then over the counter, we would teach them what they needed to do, and then they would come back and say that they're off their meds, they canceled their surgery, they're feeling better, they don't have heart disease anymore, they don't have diabetes anymore, no more depression, no more thyroid disorders.
Quite excited to go and meet Mimi Kerr. I've been following what she's done in the field of plant-based nutrition, and in particular raw food, for the last few years, and she's quite amazing, and I can't wait to ask her a few questions.
I started to get chronic pain, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and my arthritic pain started in my joints and my hands, and I was 69. I was really concerned. One of the reasons why is because my whole family left young, most of my family, and they had all kinds of illnesses, and I thought, this is starting, I'm 69. So I went to see my doctor, and of course he gave me 2 prescriptions for high blood pressure and cholesterol. He didn't do anything about the arthritis yet, he just gave me that. And I took those prescriptions and I drove home and I said, this can't be. I'm not going to start with prescriptions, it doesn't feel right to me.
There's the pain that can be avoided just simply by a lifestyle change. What I say is small changes equal miraculous results. So you make one small change in your lifestyle, let's say dietary lifestyle, it's going to have miraculous results for several reasons. One reason is when you change this one small thing, let's say raw juice or a raw smoothie in the morning instead of, let's say, a cooked meal. What ends up happening is that your body now is flooded with this living food, which is full of nutrients and energy. The next choice you're going to make at 10 or 11 or 12, next time you're going to have a meal, is going to be endowed with this vibrant and nourishing energy that's in your body. You're going to make a more positive choice. So that one small choice endows the next choice and endows the next choice. Pretty soon, if you were eating the standard American diet, you gradually begin to eat healthier foods simply because you feel better.
food. It's what gives you the nutrients, and I know that. If I'm not eating well at any time, my body tells me, hey, get back. Because I can feel, when I have those drinks in the morning, it's just like, I could feel it. I could feel it. Food should make you feel that way.
The folks who adopt plant-based diets predictably find their joints becoming much less inflamed and much more comfortable. Arthritis predictably subsides on a plant-based diet.
Well, the first week, I felt different. The second week, I knew that was it. And I have not, since I've done this, eaten this way that I do raw vegan, I've not had a pain, no joint pain. So I went back to my doctor 6 months later and told him that he took my blood pressure, everything was fine. He said, that medication's working just fine. I said, I didn't take any.
She's always doing fine. No matter what life brings her way, she's always doing fine.
Chronic pain is something that chiropractors have worked with for many, many, many years. We have often been the last bit of hope for patients who have maybe tried many different other modalities for care. Patients come to us and oftentimes they may have tried surgery. They certainly have tried opioids. Some of them have had multiple interactions that failed them and come to us really as a last resort. And I'm really excited for the opportunity now to bring the message of chiropractic, of what chiropractic can do in terms of hope, in terms of healing for a group of individuals who sometimes don't know where to turn other than a traditional route that doesn't have very many options for them.
Dr. Hassig practices a form of chiropractic that I'm a huge fan of, which is NUCCA, the National Upper Cervical Chiropractic Association. I have been under NUCCA care for a long time.
One of the hallmarks of the NUCCA work is the fact that the correction will hold and stabilize for a long period of time. So my whole focus is reducing practitioner dependency. By providing a really optimal correction of the spine, the area of the spine that particularly affects the brainstem and controls the alignment of the body. And if it's optimal, it'll stay that way. And that's where we bring in all these other conversations: nutrition, movement, hydration, meditation, your practices, all the different things that support your well-being also help maintain the stability of that correction.
I was in 7th grade and I was hit by a car. Actually, my legs were pinched between the bumpers of 2 cars and suffered a full body whiplash. My legs were beat up quite a bit and I went through some rehab for that. As I was healing from the leg injuries, which seemed to be the extent of it, I started developing severe headaches that eventually were diagnosed as migraines.
If you were to catastrophically fracture your low back, you'd be a paraplegic, your neck a quadriplegic, which includes a paraplegic. If you were to injure yourself here, then you'd be dead. And if you didn't catastrophically injure yourself there, but you did injure yourself, the idea that we have is there's a continuum between where it normally should be, and if it's catastrophically injured and you're dead, but you're not, you're on that continuum, then where are you on that continuum? So addressing this particular area, the upper neck, also known as the craniocervical junction, is critical in terms of allowing a patient to be as healthy as they possibly can be.
Migraines are such an important condition to treat properly. And we deal with a very small misalignment. I've seen clinically change people's lives.
I was holed up in my dorm room sometimes for days because of the excruciating nature of the pain. At a certain point, my parents learned about a practitioner that does NUCA, does the work with the upper neck, and so I reluctantly went and had it done just because I felt like I had already tried everything. Little by little, I saw glimpses of improvement, and at first I just thought I was imagining it, but at a certain point I couldn't deny it anymore. Clearly I was getting better.
I had just dealing with pain for 20 years and severe pain, not just, I can get out of bed kind of thing. I was down for almost a year with the back problem, couldn't move. Doctors just kept feeding me pain pills, and eventually you come to a place where you either got to get up and deal with the pain or just live in bed the rest of your life. It wasn't about that.
As our primary objective outcome with posture, we rebalance posture very quickly and effectively. And that's what we watch for long or short legs, high or low hips, twisting of the body framework. So when people live in gravity and they have two legs, we like them to be able to find neutral. And if they can't do that, a lot of the time the upper neck is contributing significantly to that issue. Now, when people are in that distorted position over time, then joints become irritated and inflamed. Muscles have to work harder on one side than the other. And people can't respond to traumas as well as they might be able to if they didn't have that predisposition.
The weight of the human head is somewhere between 12 and 16 pounds. And it sits on this first little vertebrae called the atlas. It's a very unique designed vertebrae. And the first two vertebrae in the spine are unique in their architecture. We specialize in looking at those first two vertebrae because the direction and amount those two vertebrae can misalign are infinite. And what we know is that the more precise that correction, the more benefit the patient experiences.
Some culture calls the atlas the mouth of God, denoting the power there. And whenever the mouth of God is completely free of interference, you're able to be fully expanded in who you are.
The very first time I got adjusted, I did not feel anything the first day, but when I woke up in the morning, it was like a light had turned on in my life.
It was odd because he took all these x-rays and then he laid me on my side. And the next thing was I didn't feel anything and he told me to set up. And it was the first time in 5 years I didn't have pain.
I noticed it immediately. My first correction, pain was gone.
And it was the first time I was out of pain completely since the bomb. I was able to get off all the prescriptions I was on. I was able to just start my life over again.
When you live with chronic pain, your mind starts to try to fight it. The next day, I was sitting there saying, I should be in pain right now, and I'm not. I can walk, I can move, I can tie my shoes and not feel any more pain. I slept like a baby the first night. I hadn't had that kind of a night's sleep in years. I even dreamed. I remembered the dream when I woke up. That's not normal for me.